Hello. So today I'm going to be giving my photography research presentation on David Levinthal, and I'm going to show some photos that I recreated of his, as well as talk about some information about him as an artist and show some of his work. So first, we're going to touch on who is he. So a little background about David Levinthal. He was born in San Francisco in 1949. He grew up watching Western movies, and as you go on to see his work, you'll see how that was a really important factor in shaping a lot of what he created. He has a BA in studio art and an MFA in photography, so he's well qualified. As well as some of his biggest awards are National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship and I'm going to kill this word, Guggenheim Fellowship. And then his largest collection of work that's ever been shown, it was recently in 2018, and it was called David Levinthal, War, Myth, Desire. Yeah. So next is going to be about his work. I'm going to show some examples of his work and talk a little bit more in detail about it. So this is a list of all his collections that have been published. He has a lot of other work that isn't in a full set or collection. I will show some of that later on. But as you can see, he's had a lot of collections. Many have gone to be very popular. So I have picked out 4 of them that I find really interesting and have been noted as some of the most popular work that he has done. So I'm going to start with his first work, which is Hitler Moves East. So a little bit about this is that this collection was from 1972 to 1975, and this was the first photography book that he did produce. Another word I can't pronounce, but Codolith prints was the format that he ended up doing all those photos in, and it was supposed to show Nazi Germany's eastward advancing, but recreate it in toys, obviously. And he thought it was really great because it shows this tension between the fantasy as well as the reality of the situations. So an example of some of these photos, here we can see 3 of them. One of the really interesting things I found out while researching him is that when these photos first came out, a lot of people kept asking, they're like, wow, you're really young to have gone and take photos of the war. Like, how did this happen? People didn't seem to understand that these were recreations, and I think I'll go into his purpose more, but I think that really highlights a lot of what his purpose was with his art. So just to show a little bit zoom, most of his photos are untitled, but it does shows what he started with and where he has progressed from. All right, next we're going into his collection history, which is all the way to the other side. This is his most recent collection. It was a collection from photos from 2010 all the way to 2018. It is a collection of history, basically, his recreation of it. And when reading about it, it was very interesting. Again, some of his philosophy about why he decided to, show so much about history, because history isn't always exactly what we think it is. We grow up watching things like Western movies, like he talked about, and having this very shifted sense of what history is. And he really liked this idea of how America glorifies history, and he wanted to show that through his modeling and photos. And this was all printed on archival pigment print. So here's some of the photos. This photo in particular, I think, is very interesting because when you look at it, you instantly think JFK in the back in Dallas right before he was assassinated. But there was an article I read about David Levinthal where he talked about this piece in particular and about how there's nothing in here that says that this is JFK, this is that event. We just take note from someone in the back wearing pink, the kind of car, things like that, the context that we've grown up with in history, and have put our own expectations on this work. And that's something he definitely embraces when you look at his work. He really embraces how the audience perceives it, not his own perception. And then another one of his very famous recreation photos. Okay. Next is going to be the Bad Barbie / Barbie collection. They're 2 separate collections done many years apart, but I thought since they both went with the Barbie theme, it was fitting to have them together. So First collection I'm going to talk about is the Bad Barbie collection. That was from 1972, archival pigment print on paper. And this really showed the highlighted sexuality that society puts on women, especially even from a young age when little kids are playing with Barbies. So that was a really cool thing, because when I first looked at these photos, that's not the vibe I got. I thought something completely different. But after understanding his purpose and like really reflecting on these photos, you realize how impactful they really are, and like as a culture, how this has shaped us. And then kind of on a similar note is his Barbie collection from 1997 through 1998. These were done Polaroid. And this, in a similar vein, highlights what women in America have to deal with and struggling about stereotypes. But this shows more of like the high standards that women grow up with. So it shows two different sides that don't seem like they would go together, this classy and this sexual, but somehow that is the desire of the American people. So I think it's captured beautifully in his photos. So first I'm going to show the Barbie collection. As you can tell, they're like glamorous, looking off to the side, very beautiful and eloquent. And then we have the amazing black and white photos from the Bad Barbie collection that highlight a lot more of the darker side of what we see in America for women. And then finally, the last collection I'm going to talk about is Modern Romance, so from 1983 to 1985. These were captured on Polaroid. I really liked it because he said that they were supposed to be like this dreamlike state that you're in when you're looking at these photos. And again, kind of this idea of this blurriness going on in the photo, so you're supposed to, as the person viewing it, put your own implications and what this means to you. And it says a little bit about that in the bottom, but he says this kind of speaks to solitude, sexual isolation, and the urban anxiety. So here are some of these photos. Right away with this first image, you can see that grainy blue TV vibe that he was going for in the sexual scene. This diner. And then the street corner, which I think is really great and gives off an amazing vibe. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the why. So you've seen some of his work, you've understand what he's done, his background, but why is this the work he's producing, since it is such a niche market? So I broke down David's why and what his photos mean into these three categories. So highlighting myth of the past. As I said, one of his most popular, largest collection of his show was about myth. And as I talked about a little bit earlier as well, he really likes this idea of mixing in what society knows from history and what they think the world and things were like and what they actually are. He finds this combination, this crossroad, that we find out that things aren't what we actually thought they are. And he's not afraid to show that. And I think that's really cool. He allows the viewer to make assumptions and provide input. Another article I read about him said how he also likes using children's toys for these photos because it's very interesting to see the Barbie in a sexual position, because you may have grown up playing with the Barbie. You have a connection to it. And he wants the people viewing his art to find their own connection to his work and find the meaning for themselves. And then a greater sense of the American identity. He's not afraid to call out America for what it is, this raunchy, this blurry, this twisted society that we've created. And he wants to highlight that in his own unique way. So finally, I'm going to show my recreation photos that I produced based on his photographs. So I ended up creating 6 photos that were based on his. So the first one is based off a photo in his IED collection, which, interesting enough, was the first collection that he ever did on digital film. All the other ones before, he was using a Kodak film. They stopped carrying it, and this collection is his first digital collection, which is pretty cool. So on the top left corner, you're going to see his photo. Here's his from the collection. And this is my recreation. I tried to make sure that I captured still some of those warm tones that you see in that original photograph, as well as staying true to the army style. Obviously, his army men are a little bit more advanced looking than mine, but I was hoping, same vibe. Next is going to be my recreation from his Bad Barbie collection. Here's his original image. Black and white, again, you can kind of see that the camera's focused on the breast of the Barbie, not really the perpetrator or even her herself. So I tried to go for a little bit of a similar vibe, that black and white, that high contrast. I really like the over-the-shoulder look that you get from the perpetrator in the image. I think that's really powerful. The next one comes from his history collection. This is an army man in the grass. Pretty self-explanatory. I did not have I had more army men, but I wanted to show off a little bit of different characters. I didn't want to use the army men again. So I used this little character and I put it in a bush. It's definitely more of an homage rather than a recreation. I just really liked the imagery that was produced when you see the character from before, peeking up over the grass, and how that really puts the plane in perspective for you. So I wanted to do a similar thing. The next one is from a untitled collection that he did fairly recently. He went through and took a bunch of pictures of Lego characters for this big Lego event that was happening. So that is his image, and this is my image. I did the best that I could. I couldn't find any powerful looking Legos, so it's more of a glamour shot, but again, still an homage. This is from the actual Barbie collection. So here you see beautiful, high contrast image of a Barbie. I attempted to go for the same thing. I'm really happy with how the lighting effects came out. I think that is a really good call to the photo. Fortunately, I don't think my Barbie has the same standard of beauty or grace that the one from the 90s does, but same idea. And then finally, this is also from an unnamed grouping, no collection. I love this one personally. This was my favorite photo I saw because I think it really paints that idea of that this is a miniature, and it's so in your face, but the first time you look at it, you're like, oh, what's happening? And then you notice the water bottle, which I think is super cool. And so I did a call to that. Didn't find any little test men, so I used this fake bird instead, but I think this was easily my favorite photo to come out of the collection that I recreated. I love the reflection. I think I didn't even realize it until I took my own photo, how impactful that reflection was, even in his original image. So I'm really happy with how that one came out. So that is all of it. That's what I have to present. I hope that you liked my recreation and that you learned a little bit more. It was a friendly reminder about David Levinthal. I'm really excited to continue to see his work. I think it's really unique how he's not afraid to call out America for the standards that it's setting and the issues that it has, but as well as highlighting the beauty in America as well. Thanks.